fans, Brian Copeland talking, and this is our second YouTube edition of the Copeland's Corner podcast. If you're listening to us and not watching us, you're listening on the regular podcast feed over iTunes or Stitcher or on Spotify. If you're watching us over YouTube or some of the other platforms that we're going to be rolling out over the course of the next couple of weeks. So last week went really well. I thought, how's this going to look? We'll see. And it went well. We had a good time. People were texting saying, thanks so much for inviting us to the party. So I guess that's what we'll do. We'll just have a party here. This is my family room. I'll have a party here in my family room every week. I have a distinguished panel of comics, if all goes well, who will be joining us in a couple of minutes. I usually start out with a commentary, at the beginning, just for a couple of minutes, just to talk about just something that's in the news. And there's just really nothing I could find today that was a particular hair up my keister for me to talk about to start off. There just was nothing. I mean, I'm looking, it's Wednesday when we record this and we drop it on Thursday. The podcast drops in the morning. The video will drop in the afternoon after we do some editing and stuff on it. And really the only thing that's happening today is you're starting to see two things happening today, and they're both Republican-based things. Tonight, you got the GOP primary debate. Are you going to watch it? Because I'm going to do something much more fun, like, I don't know, have a colonoscopy, root canal with no Novocaine, something much more enjoyable than watching this dais full of sycophants who are 40 points behind the front runner, try to out-Trump each other for president than he does. I'll see it in this case. He has had his bail set at $150,000. What happened to him? What the heck happened to him? I remember when he was, Mr. Upright Prosecutor who was prosecuting the mob, and they were calling him Elliot Ness and all of this kind of stuff. Then he ran for mayor, and, some people thought as mayor he was heavy-handed, but I was in New York for a little while when he was mayor, and I noticed the city was a lot cleaner than it had been before he was the mayor. And then after 9/11, he was America's mayor. And he brought the country together. You can really make that argument. Or certainly New York he brought together after that tragedy. And now you look at him and he is on the verge of disbarment. He's going to be disbarred in more than one jurisdiction. So he's 79 years old. He can't practice law. He's got no way of making any money. He has millions of dollars in legal bills right now. Millions of dollars, that is right, in the New York Times, in legal bills. And Trump had been promising to pay those. Yeah, good luck. Good luck. Talk to those contractors in New York, or rather in New Jersey, about whether or not Trump pays when he asks you to do something for him. And Trump's not paying him. So the bet right now is who of these, I think it's, 18? Is it 18 that have been indicted so far in Atlanta? In Fulton County, and basically whoever is willing to flip on Trump first is the one who's going to get the best deal. Whoever flips first gets the best deal. If you wait, the longer you wait, the more people that flip ahead of you, forget it. They don't need you. You have to be able to give law enforcement something that the prosecution something that they could use to get the conviction for the big fish they want, which is in this case Trump. And there's a lot of speculation that it's going to be Giuliani because of the fact that he is millions of dollars in debt. Trump has promised to help him, and Trump has not given him one thin dime. So stay tuned. We'll see. But in terms of this debate tonight, why? You're watching why? For what possible reason would you watch this debate? Unless Trump slips on a banana peel or has a stroke or something from eating out one of these Big Macs, he's going to be the Republican nominee. So what's the point of watching these other guys trying to these promising that he's talking about with this? We'll talk about it next week. But until then, do something more fun. Or, well, this being Thursday, I hope last night you did something more fun than watch that, like I said, like have a colonoscopy. This is the part of the podcast or the YouTube cast that we call Headliners on the Headlines. Joining me this week, two of our regulars. Chris Riggins is here from Los Angeles, Johnny Steele. And Johnny, you're in the East Bay, right?
Correct, sir.
Here, and joining us for the first time, Canday Shaw, who's also in the East Bay, if I'm not mistaken.
You're not mistaken.
Okay, so you were the virgin here. So this is your first time. This is your very, very first time.
Be gentle with me.
Before we get started, I was just looking at news articles and things as I pull stories for the show, and I was seeing that the San Francisco International Comedy Competition is coming up in September, and so Chris, you were the reigning champion.
I am the reigning champion.
And Johnny, you won it in the past. What year did you win it?
1947. The war had ended. Everybody was in a good mood. It was easy back then. Shecky Green, no problem. I nailed him in the semifinals. Yeah.
You took his wife, please.
Yeah. Believe it or not, it was 30 years ago I won that. 92, I think.
Wow.
Can you believe that? We lad.
And
92, 2022.
That's a problem. When I was a young comic starting out when I did it, and I came in like 12th or something. I think I was 12th, and Greg Proops, who was on the show last week, was 11th. And what's interesting is Jeff Garland, who was on the Goldbergs and on Curb Your Enthusiasm, came in 40th out of 40th, and Janine Garofalo came in 39th out of 40th. So, and the guy who won. I can't even tell you his name. He won and then joined the witness protection program or something. After that,
it's strange that way, though. I mean, the first year I got into it, I was really young, like mid-20s, and I had no idea how it was different than comedy. You know, I teach comedy and work with other comics a lot, and they don't really understand that it's different. They go up there with a beverage and do, "Hey, how y'all doing? What's happening?" And then they take a sip of their beverage. I'm like, dude, you got 20 seconds to win over the audience. And then you got to get 5 punchlines at least for the next 4 minutes or you're through. And so the first time I did it, I took essentially, sorry, I'm getting a call, very important guy here. Hang up. I took, I think like 38th or something. And then I said, I'm never doing this again. And then 2 years later, they talked me into it. And I made like the semifinal, like 7. I barely got knocked out of the finals. And I said, I'm never doing this again. But I learned from it. So I came back 2 years later and I learned the trick. Every night I entered the stage a different way. I just opened with something that completely separated me from everybody else. If everybody in front of me kept the mic on the stand, I pulled the mic off the stand. I went into the audience verbally and physically. And that's, so it's a little bit more about when you did it and how much confidence you have, and have you done competitions before? Did you think about the difference between a competition? I don't know. Chris feels the same, but that's how I felt about it. I saw Chris. I was the guest performer the night at Orinda when you won that night. Remember that?
Yeah. I did a whole original set that night. Like that's kind of what I kind of did to take myself to win it. Was every night I came out differently. Every night I did something. I studied the towns we were going into. I found out stuff about the city we were in. So I would talk about that, like when we did the retirement center and the retirement community in Walnut Creek. I basically went on their website and just read all their amenities and all the things, and I did jokes about, I'm about to move in, and I talked to the people in the crowd, and I found out they have a cannabis dispensary, so I talked about smoking weed with them, and they loved it. And I came in first that night. You actually
broke material in during the competition? You actually broke in?
Yeah,
usually
because like you said,
best 5, your tightest 5 that you've done and you worked it and you've honed and
the first round, yes, you definitely have to just work your best material because you have 5 minutes and you can't break that light. So you go with what you know. You do the jokes that you have time, that you can do. Jokes you can cut short if you realize you're about to run out of time. So you do your tried and true. On the next set, you can get a little bit longer. So you try to do a little crowd work and add a little something extra, but then you do your longer jokes and bigger jokes. But then on that last set, that's basically a feature set. You're doing 15 to 18 minutes. So you have time to go up there and literally talk to these people and literally, get into them and by, like Johnny said, by coming out different and standing out, because everybody that's in the finals is funny, but what makes you stand out? You know what I mean? What's going to take you to that next step? And that's all I did. It's like I said, you just got to go out there and be different.
Now, Candy, have you done it yet? Notice how I said yet?
Many years ago, I don't even remember what year it was. Because I had quit for like 10 years and came back. So my memories of those days are very, very fuzzy. So
Well,
it
you
could,
remember the trauma of that.
yes.
You remember the trauma of the competition, because it's just nerve wracking, especially when you're starting out. It's just nerve wracking, because the way it used to be was, if you wanted to book, the producers of that were the biggest bookers in town when Johnny and I were doing it.
Yeah.
They were the biggest bookers in town. They booked the Punchlines, and they booked all of the other major rooms here and up and down the West Coast. And if you wanted to get booked or be considered, you had to do it. You had to do it. And it's just kind of like, how do you judge? I mean, one person's sense of humor is not the same as somebody else's sense of humor. How do you judge, who's funnier than somebody else? Like I said, a guy that came in 40th place probably ended up, the year that I did it, ended up being the biggest star, I think, out of all 40 that did it. Although Chris is doing great. Chris is just touring with Chappelle.
Yeah. Just did some shows with Michael Che in the Bay Area. And just here at the Comedy Store, grinding it out, getting more and more looks from the bookers there, and they're putting me on different shows, trying to see where I'm a fit. And hopefully I'll get my name on the wall in the next year or two.
I had my name on a wall once, but that's an entirely different thing. We'll start with this. Let's jump into it a little bit here. According to a poll that was released yesterday, and I believe it was from the Associated Press, 71% of people who self-identify as MAGA or Trump supporters trust Trump. 71% trust Trump more than they trust their families, and more than they trust and believe their clergy people. And what's interesting about this is, I think it was Chris Hayes last night read an email that someone had sent to try to explain how, because this is clearly cultism. I mean, if you're going to believe this guy over your own family. And I want to know what you think about this. So this email said the reason why these people are so invested is because you have people who have lost friends, you have people who've lost family members, you have people who are never going to be able to see their grandchildren again because of the fact that they supported this man. And they can't turn around now and say, whoops, I made a mistake. I went through all that, put my family through all of that for nothing. So do you think there's validity to that?
Absolutely. It's like you can't turn back now. If you've burned so many bridges, and you can't, because then you feel stupid.
You can't go back over bridges you burned. The bridges you burned. You can't swim, so you're stuck on this island. So yeah, you gotta 10 toes down, double down, and hold the line, because you've sacrificed. So it's kind of like how I feel about comedy sometimes. Like, I have sacrificed so much for this dream that I can't quit now. I can't. I have to go forward. So no matter how hard it is, I got to do what I got to do. And unfortunately for them, this means missing out on family and just being a regular person in society.
There's a thing in debate called double down, and the double down is when it's an amazing number of people, even when they realize they are wrong, they will continue to double down rather than concede defeat, say that they were wrong. It's an amazing thing. I don't remember the percentage. I should have. I was studying this in college and whatnot, but a lot of people will just, in the face of completely contrary sound evidence, will continue to forge on. It's also what happens is, I've learned this before too. If we start in the middle, people who move out to the left or right, somewhere around 60 or 70%, they still are open to other ideas and kind of rational. It's once you get past that 70% into that last 80, 90, 100%, where it becomes much more like a cult.
Yeah.
So in a cult, the leader is king, is boss, and anything that's said contrary is only said by somebody who's trying to trick you, So it's all this kind of weird stuff that comes into play. And then there are a lot of people making money, like my stockbrokers and all these guys, they want fewer regulations and more drilling and everything else. And so, they're not going to come out and say, hey, I'll make a hell of a lot more money with a guy like Trump than I will with, than an environmental minded liberal. They won't tell you that probably out loud, but
no, they won't say that. Well, that's the thing now with Trump with MAGA is that they're saying the quiet part out loud. He's made it okay to say the quiet part out loud. Let me ask you guys this.
Well, let me just tell you this real quick.
Right.
100% of people sitting on my couch right now have done this podcast a number of times, but didn't notice you had a pool table in a game room. You weren't inviting people down. 100% of people right here on this camera are going, what is that all about?
Come over, shoot pool.
I know, we talk about it all the time.
You're all invited. Anytime you want to come over and shoot pool, come on. I suck. I have a table. I should be a lot better for having a table. I've had a table for years. Right. I suck.
All right. It's the first time I saw it, but all right. I'm no good. I just wanted to dog you.
So let me ask you this question. I lost a 40-year friendship over MAGA. I mean, I tried to ignore it. I tried not to talk about it. I tried to not listen to it or look at the things that were posted. And it's kind of like, and this was a white friend. And it was kind of like, how can you say that you love me, but you're supporting the candidate who was twice endorsed by the Ku Klux Klan? You're supporting a white supremacist. You're supporting a guy who referred to Black people as riggers a couple of weeks ago. I mean, how can you say you give a crap about me and yet go ahead and support this? I can't. So there are about 2 or 3 people who I really tried. And it's not just because people go, oh, you don't like people at different points of view. No, I have plenty of Republican friends. I've had plenty of Republican friends all my life, all over the political spectrum. This is a whole nother animal.
Yeah, this isn't Republican. This is cultish. They're definitely in a cult, and it's because Brian, and I say this all the time. Racism is so American that if you go against racism, they call you anti-American. So these people feel it's like, this guy is American. He wants to make America great again. And for them, they've never had to deal with the things that me and you have had to deal with. So for them, they don't see that aspect. They just see it as they can ignore all that other stuff because it doesn't affect them. They are not going to be affected by his racism. So for them, it is basically an issue of financial this or I don't like that other guy. It's so simple because they have the privilege of not having to actually be affected by his white supremacist views.
Have you lost friends? Have you lost any friends, or are there anybody you cut out of your life?
No, my white friends are from Oakland. They ain't about to vote for Trump. My white friends.
Johnny, you cut people out of your life?
I have. Unfortunately, there are some relatives I'm probably never going to see again, and you know what? That's okay.
That's sad, and they say that that's common. They say that's common. They say that there are people who are never going to see their grandchildren again, literally. Because the fact that they've gone so far up the deep end, their kids are like, if this is what you support, I don't want you indoctrinating my kids. I don't want you around my children with this nonsense.
Yeah.
Just to be fair, though, I have Cal football season tickets, and I have written people out of my life that like USC. So things are across the board. One quick about Trump for me is forget politics, race, international, whatever for a minute. How about this? The man is mentally unstable and completely unqualified for the job. I mean, just go back to that. I mean, Lord have mercy. He didn't think enough about public policy or government in the United States to run for city council anywhere, I mean, that's disturbing. I think Will Durst had a great line. I'm pretty sure it was Will Durst about the presidency of the United States is not an entry-level position. I mean, the things he doesn't know, the cow pies he could step in, the international messes he can create and had created by just being completely mentally unstable and unskilled and unprepared for the job. These are the folks who were screaming about Obama, calling him a community organizer. The guy had been, in politics for years before he ran for president. And this guy, suddenly the whole unqualified thing disappeared when this lunatic who owns a couple of, some hotels and some other stuff. And the other thing is this, they keep saying, well, he's a good businessman. Well, 2 things. One, government isn't a business. And number two, he's not a good businessman. Was it his father? How much money, Brian knows this, I'm sure. How much money does dad give him on a loan to start with?
Hundreds of millions of dollars. They found
however much.
Washington Post story. It was New York Times story where they looked at his finances. The lie that he used to tell was that his father started him off with a small loan of $1 million to get started. And come to find out that it was flat out untrue. He was given hundreds of millions of dollars. And
it wasn't even a loan. Come on, let's be honest. The guy fell out of a golden vagina into a bassinet full of Krugerrands, for Christ's sake. Not a good businessman. Probably all of us here on this thing are good businessmen. We started out with just regular blue collar lives, and now we're looking at Copeland's pool table. I mean,
that's exactly it.
I will say this about Trump. He has inspired me because the fact that he didn't even know what he was doing and he still got the job. I figured that this should work on all other careers. So now I'm going to be a surgeon. I'm going to just walk into Kaiser next week, and I'm just going to tell him, hey, y'all, I'm a really good comedian, so I know what's going on in these people's heads. I could be a neurosurgeon. So Dr. Chris Riggins,
congratulations.
From now on.
I'll tell you a story. My son, when my son Adam was in college, he had a really, really bad stomach pain. And they took him to the emergency room and they looked at him and they said, you just got a flu, it's fine. They sent him back home. And so he gets a fever and it's worse. And they send him to the hospital again. Same thing, he's in the ER for 3 or 4 hours. And then finally they send him back home. It's okay, just take some Pepto-Bismol, you're gonna be fine. Then his girlfriend, whose full medical training consists of watching episodes of Grey's Anatomy, I swear to God, said, that's appendicitis. She diagnosed it as appendicitis. So I came and picked him up, drove him up. He was going to SF State at the time, and I drove him over to a doctor over here in the East Bay. And as soon as he walked in, the nurse said, "Oh, he's got appendicitis."
Wow.
But she diagnosed it from Grey's Anatomy.
Is she currently?
Okay.
Is she currently available? I have a pain in my back. Can I see her? Can I get in this week? Copeland's House of Pool and Medical Advice. I'm coming over.
Come on over. Let's see what else we got going on here. India is on the moon. You see that? India is now the 4th nation to land on the moon, behind America, China, and Russia.
Wow.
Good for them.
Yeah.
It's enough of them. It's a lot of people over there. I figure by now some of them should have moved to the moon.
Yeah.
Conserve some space. Someone's going to colonize the moon, and I'm glad it's brown people this time. We'll probably treat the moon people far better than the white people treated any of us when they decide to come colonizing. So right on, India, Black people stand behind you. Just don't forget us when it really comes time to lead this place.
Moon people.
They got to bring blankets with smallpox to the moon.
Moon by. It's moon by now.
Nice.
Now, I'm going to get in trouble with your Indian followers, but I'm pretty surprised because years ago I had an Indian cab driver. I couldn't find the Oakland Coliseum. So I'm pretty impressed. Send your letters to Brian Copeland at...
In his defense, the Raiders and the Warriors and the A's won't be able to find it pretty soon either. So nobody can find Oakland Coliseum.
Don't get me started. Speaking of which, there was a list put out today by CNBC of the most expensive cities to live in America, and Oakland is 12. That surprised me. Oakland is the 12th most expensive city in America to live. Number 1 is Manhattan, followed by Honolulu, then San Francisco. San Francisco's 3rd. Then Brooklyn, then Orange County, then LA Long Beach, DC, Boston is number 8, Seattle's number 9, San Diego's 10, Arlington, Virginia is 11, and Oakland is 12. I'm really surprised that
I'm happy.
Well, okay, but is it gentrification? I mean, why is it suddenly one of the most expensive places in the country to live?
It's probably gentrification, but this is better than being on the top homicide city. So let's go. We're up on the rise, baby. We're one of the most expensive cities now. Hey, you still gonna get your car broken into, but
yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
Brian, that I've sort of barely dabbled in building and real estate over the years on the side. And when I was in junior high school, California had like 18 or 19 million people. How many do we have now? 40?
I have no clue, something like
Too
that.
many.
40 something, and it's growing. Just every time I turn around, it just seems like there's another field that's. So the thing is, places like San Francisco and Oakland, they were already built out to their borders in that period of time. So 20 million more people, let's say, ballpark figure, I think I'm close, have come into the state. And, occasionally we knock down an old Cragen and build a 4-story building or something like that. But that's thing one is there's just the population has doubled and more since before I got to high school in the state. That's one thing. And the other thing is I owned a part of a building company in Oakland. God help you if you want to build in Oakland. God, first of all, it's got to be, I'm all for most of this, but it's got to be ADU this, it's got to be environmentally that, it's got to be earthquake retrofit to hell and back. They're going to make sure, that every single, the I is dotted and T is crossed. You go down there for permits, there's 12 windows, there's 2 people working there. They passed a law a few years ago where I think once again, ballpark figure, where if I want to take an old house on a lot and try to lift it and then add 2 more in the back, you have to get what's called a variance, which means that house is R1 now. Only 1 residential building can occupy that. But the city's screaming for housing. So you can get a variance on that, right? Meaning the city can say, fine, okay, if you comply with this and this and this, we'll let you do that. And now there was a rule a few years ago where somebody within 1,000 yards can throw a monkey wrench in and just fill out a form and say they don't like it because it, inconveniences them and somehow. Now everyone's lawyered up and you're sitting there for 9 months. Well, you buy a dilapidated house for, $1.2 million. You can't sit there holding it, paying principal, interest, tax, and insurance for 9 months. And then when you finally get your permits, you go down to the city and there's 2 people there. It's just, those are the problems I saw. I mean, those are not mutually exclusive of other problems, but just right. you can't make it that. There's an old right-wing billboard, like, about, I forget what it was. And, I don't necessarily agree with this, but it was like, make a building up. Remember this? Somebody must remember this. Make a building permit as easy to get as welfare. And this is what these, you never seen that?
Yeah. No, I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And there's some truth in the fact that some cities are harder to build in. In San Francisco, I think they were looking at, housing the homeless. People talk about, the problem is expensive housing. Well, yeah, the city, I think, did a study and showed it was going to be something like $800,000 or $900,000 per unit and take years, you
see that every year they put out the list of how much money you need to make in order to be able to be considered low income in a city, so that you are eligible for certain low income benefits and services. In San Francisco, it's $100,000 if you're single. If you're a single person living in the city, single, and you're making $100,000, you qualify as low income. That's insanity. Wow. And that's insanity. But here's the thing: over the last 2 years, California has been one of the states that has actually had a net number of people who have left. We've actually lost population by people leaving to move to places that are cheaper. But everybody I know who's moved to South Carolina because they can get a house for $9 on 10 acres has turned around and has come back. Everybody I know who's moved to Montana, everyone I know, and this is all anecdotal. And I'm talking about 8, 9, 10 people I know who've done this, and they turn around and they come back. Yeah, it's expensive to live here, but there's a reason.
Yeah,
there's a reason.
There's a reason. There's a reason that it's cheap in South Carolina. Nothing against South Carolina, but there are certain things.
And the lesson from here is obviously, Brian, is don't be a real estate agent in places where the houses are $9, because your commission's not going to pay for it. Commission's going to be like 38 cents, or not even that. How could you make a living as a real estate agent? The median house price is $9. Something for the younger viewers today. A little lesson.
Elon Musk. I love this story. Elon Musk blocked James Woods. You know what a right winger James Woods has become. Elon Musk blocked James Woods on X, or Twitter, after Woods criticized Musk's plan to eliminate X to eliminate the blocking function. In other words, he's going to fix it so that on Twitter you can't block people. And because James Woods complained about the fact that he's going to stop people from being able to block him, he blocked him. Mr. Free, Mr. Free Speech, Mr. Free. It's all about free speech. That was the whole reason he was taking over Twitter, because it was all about free speech. That's why Trump got his account back. Everybody's be able to say whatever they want. It's to be a marketplace, unless you criticize me or unless you say something that I don't like.
Yeah.
That's
Well, he's run that company completely in the toilet. They say that he's lost something like $1 billion in brand equity. Just by why, that little blue bird is like known around the world. It's iconic. Why would you get rid of that and put an X?
Ego.
It makes no sense.
His ego. He wants it all to be about him. Like it's literally like having a 2-minute conversation with this man at the Chase Center. I realized this guy is not there. It's like, Johnny was talking about Donald Trump. There are some very mentally unstable people who have a lot of money, and we're in an era now where, back in the day, when Howard Hughes went crazy, they just hit him away. They were like, "Ooh, you crazy, man. Stay away in this hotel room and put these napkin boxes on your feet. Just stay away out the public. You just don't, and that was the thing. Howard Hughes is a recluse. These guys are out in the street. They on TV acting unstable. And when you realize that Elon is all about himself, that's why he wanted to say X. That's why he gave his child some weird name. That's why it's just a weird ego that's just it's scary.
You guys, question to everybody, because we're all entertainers, comedians here. I abandoned that years ago. I just found it wasn't as good of a platform. I mean, certainly some have done well with it, but I found it was just a lot of infighting and everything else. Are you guys active on whatever it's called now, Twitter? And do you find success with it?
I am, but I'm not super active. I read a lot more than I post.
I go there for news.
Yeah,
when I want to confirm a story, I'll go to Twitter, and then Brian, we may get in trouble for speaking on this, but Black Twitter is a real place, and it's the only thing that keeps me going sometimes. The fact that
it's hilarious.
It's a whole world of us out there who just it's when you realize that Black culture is just permeates everywhere Black people come from. We all have these very same ideals, which is we don't trust white people.
Thank you for speaking for all of us. I appreciate that.
You
do the spokesman. Thank you very much.
I didn't say we dislike them. I said we don't trust them, and you don't trust white people.
I don't trust a lot of them.
Trump friend. That's why you got rid of your Trump friend, Brian, because you don't trust them. You can like them, but you don't trust them. You're like, oh, but I'm waiting for you to show me who you really are.
I really don't know how to respond to that.
I don't trust my Black friend who has a pool table and never invites me over.
I trust Candy enough. I trust her on the air. I trust Candy enough. Johnny, I've known forever. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't.
But we're not talking individuals. We're talking.
Yeah.
We're talking. But here's the thing: in the society, we're not talking individuals. We're talking the same thing when I say Black culture. Black culture overall, we all have very similar experiences. Whether we come from the Bay Area, whether we come from Lagos, Nigeria, we all have very same experience with white supremacy. So therefore, we have all developed a very, very similar view on white people, which is not necessarily we hate them or we want to hurt them or that we don't like or have individual white friends, but as a culture and overall society, we don't trust white society. As an overall, that's why we have so many Black people who were willing to not take the vaccination, not because they don't trust science, because they don't trust white society who has used science to hurt us in the past.
Now, so what's interesting about that is you're talking about dividing a line as far as culture is concerned, is that there's an invisible line and there's stuff that you'll say among your culture that you won't say outside the culture. And I didn't realize how that worked as far as gender was concerned until I saw Barbie. When I believe it or not, when I saw Barbie, I realized, oh my God, it's a lot of the same stuff that America Ferrera is saying is the same stuff that we have to deal with as African Americans. You can be this, but you can't be too much of that, or you'll be considered this. And there are certain things that women will say amongst each other that they will not say in mixed company, so to speak.
In mixed company, yes. See, Brian, I know you know because you grew up around older black women, and they always say that. My mom and my grandmas, my aunties always said, you don't say stuff in mixed company. And I didn't get it until I got older and realized what they were saying was, we don't let white society know what's going on behind our shield, even though they've told us everything about them, even though they forced us to learn everything about them. We still have this kind of like veil of, we got secrecy. We can have the cookout. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing of it. And you know for a fact that as a society, as black, as people of color even, there's something about white supremacy that has given us this common mistrust of white society that we don't speak in mixed company about certain things.
All right,
like
well,
even
let me ask you this as a woman, am I accurate in terms of this as far as gender is concerned? That there are conversations that women will not have in mixed company, that they will not have if there are a group of men around.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little stumped on, I feel like we definitely probably feel like we can speak freer with other women because we all know, like, you know, what we go through, just, you know, being treated differently, or just, you know, what it's like to be a woman, and, you know, our bodies and stuff. I'm not a mom, but I know, like, I feel like moms kind of have a bond, and they can talk about things that they might not be talking about that's just one example, around men. But yeah, absolutely. We definitely, I think I do anyway. I can't speak for all the others, but I think so, definitely. Yeah.
And here's something that I have heard women argue about. And I've heard it being argued about as being sexist, and I've heard women argue about it in favor of saying that it's true, that if you have a hierarchy take a business situation where you have a bunch of women, there's one woman who has to be the queen bee, and they are more competitive among each other when they should be sticking together, as opposed to, you see where I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm.
Am I making any sense? Is there any truth to that, or is that a sexist stereotype?
It's funny because you just made me remember when I was like in my 20s and I was temping in a real estate office. It was, I'm going to say maybe like, let's just say 18 out of the 20 realtors were women. And it was really different. It was an eye-opening experience for me, because at that point in my life, I was like, oh my God, it's going to be so nice to work in a place that's predominantly women, because I'm not going to have to deal with so much sexism. And no, I mean, two of these women, the queen bees, literally, like, women who were in their 50s, almost came to blows. I mean, I didn't witness it myself, but it was, yeah, totally. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Yeah, they all should have been. They were not as supportive of each other as they should have. There was just a lot of I hate to use cattiness.
Is there a sisterhood? Is there really such a thing as a sisterhood? And I'm not talking about traveling pants, but is there I had to say that because my daughter dragged me to that movie when she was a kid. Her sisterhood, it's always followed by the traveling pants.
Yeah, but there are always exceptions. Like you'll hear people say, like, oh, she's not a girl's girl. Like, she's more like a man's, like, she doesn't stick up for other women. Like, she'll drop you she'll drop you for a man, or drop you for even not like
pick me
romantically. Yeah. But for like a job or whatever, or just
pick me.
Yeah.
That's what they call them, pick me's, because they'll do it. And it's kind of like, Brian, it's the same thing as what we would consider a coon in our community, where it's some, like, and I'm sure you've experienced this, Brian, when we've been in spaces with other black people, and you think, oh, what's up, brother? We go, and then they're like, nah, partner, it's only room for one of us here, and I'm seriously not going to let you take it. And I think what is, when you're in a male dominated space, women can do that. When you're in a white dominated space, black people can do that. So it's really a marginalized group people. When you're fighting for equality, sometimes people get so caught up in that fight that they lose sight that we're all fighting for equality instead of I'm fighting for equality. You know what I mean?
Johnny, when you and I were coming up, it was hard for at least in the Bay Area comedy community, I know that it was hard for women. It was hard for women to get booked. It was hard for women to get stage time. Do you think that it's any different now? Do you think that it's any easier now?
I don't go to a lot of the younger, venues because I have a certain demographic and it's more theaters and, that kind of thing and fundraisers.
Theaters myself now too.
So I don't go to the 12-person open mic for free and, down the street in Oakland. But when I look at it, it seems like it's about half women. It's Candy could probably weigh in better than I can, but it seems like more women per show than we had, say, at a Sunday night at the Punchline back in the day. And if that's because of some political, shift, or if that's just because women feel more confident now, I don't know. But and Candy, wouldn't you say? I mean, Candy was around, not way back when I started, but somewhere along that line. Yeah, definitely seems to be more now. On every bill, there's one. It seems there isn't on most bills. There is. That was an exception back in the day. If there was,
yeah, that's right. It was. Yeah. It was an exception. And and God forbid that you saw a woman headliner. There were like a handful.
Paula Poundstone when I started. Yeah, Ellen DeGeneres. A few from Stephanie Hodge would come in from out of town. Remember her? Cobb's booked her a lot of time. Carrie Snow. I worked with her many times on the road in Vegas. Yeah, so it was rare as a headliner, but just rare. I wouldn't say rare, but
Elaine Boozler would come to town from time to time.
Yeah, and there were a lot of maybe more New York gals, Rita Rudner and people like that. But it was, I don't know. I would say something like 10-1, wouldn't you? Back in the day, back in the 90s or late 80s, early 90s.
So is it better, Candy? Is it better now?
Oh, I think so. I'll be honest. I never once thought that I didn't get booked because I was a woman. I think in some cases it helps because they're like, oh my gosh, we have this all guy lineup. Can you join us? Mm-hmm. But I came in at I did my first open mic in 2006. And that's when like Chelsea Handler was blowing up. And then she was like, she had her show and she brought on a lot of female comics. And then you had like Whitney Cummings. And it seemed like there was a certain like type that I fit in, of that we were sort of like, I was definitely a little dirtier, edgier, less PC back then. So I felt like I was kind of, that was a good thing. I was kind of rolling in that type that was popular at the time. But what was I going to say? Yeah, the Priya Gayudin, she does those Cougars on the Loose shows. It's all it's all women. There might be one token Manther, we call them. She created
it. Sounds predatory when you say Manther. Like Cougar sounds hot. Manther sounds like keep him away from the cheerleaders.
You mentioned Chelsea Handler.
Yeah,
I got to bring this up. TheCut.com has an article called that they put out actually in the end of June. They put this out called "The Return of the Messy Celebrity Divorce." And what they talked about is how over the course of the last 10 years, whenever people who are A-listers get divorced, they typically put out some kind of a joint statement together about how good of friends they are and all of this kind of stuff. And Chelsea Handler, when she announced her breakup with Joe Coy, she and Joe Coy were seeing each other for a while. She put out a statement saying, quote, "This is not an ending, but another beginning. It is a comfort to know that I'm still in love and love this man the way the sun loves the moon and the moon loves the sun," unquote. And all I got to say is, oh, bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, bullshit. If it's that great, why are you breaking up? If it's that great, why? All
right, Brian. Let me explain. We have been raised on toxic relationships our whole lives. We have been raised either you stay married forever or you have a wild, crazy divorce, and this is it. But there is a place in the middle where two people can say, you know what? Our schedules just ain't linking up. We are busy. We are growing apart.
But that's
we gotta go our separate ways.
That's different than I love him like the moon loves the sun.
I mean,
that's a little overboard.
I have one ex that I still love to death. I will love them forever. We just are not good as a relationship because our lives are two different areas. So it's like, I'm happy to see this. I want more normalization of less toxic breakup where people can see you don't have to have a knockdown, drag out battle in the public view to break up. Even though, Brian, I am down for the drama. You know, I will. The most fun thing to do sometimes is scroll Facebook and find a nice breakup post and just cuddle up with a nice cup of tea and just read the you caught him with your sister. Oh, it's just.
Well, the messy divorce they mention here is Kevin Costner's. Kevin Costner is apparently ugly. His wife of 18 years, Christine Baumgartner, filed. She filed in May, and he says that he was blindsided. He said he had no idea that it was coming. She says that he cheated. And so every single part of this has been ugly so far. She has filed legal documents refusing to leave their home. The prenup that she signed said that, you know, in the event of the divorce, he got the house, and the house is $145 million house in Carpentaria. Oh, and she doesn't feel that she should have to go. And because she's angry with him for what she says he put the family through. Now, the flip side of this is that she's asking for $248,000 a month in child support.
Woo!
$248,000 a month in child support for 3 teenagers.
That
reminds me of a Durst joke. It's like, I can't live on that, then die. $248,000 a month.
I've seen Kevin Costner movies. She's earned it. I've seen Kevin Costner movies. She earned it. She earned it every penny.
Well, they're not all the Postman.
She sat through all the movies. Said, "Baby, you so good, baby. This is such a good movie. I just love this movie." Yes. And then now she's like, "I love it."
I prefer Depp versus Heard. I think that was a much better show.
I saw that. Did you see it?
Yeah.
I
meant the whole situation. Like I wanted
to watch it. I didn't watch it when it was unfolding, but Netflix rather has got a 3-episode documentary that they dropped on Friday, and I was going to watch the first part of it. Next thing I know, it's 3:00 in the morning. You know, and I watched all 3 of them. It's kind of like, you know, this was just, you know,
2 terrible people.
It kind of went back and forth for me for a minute. Then it's like, you know, you guys are both lousy human beings.
Why break up?
How did you get together to begin with?
Yeah. You know, Brian, my wife and I split up during the COVID, right? You know that, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, you know, so we're pals. I mean, she just came, I knew this, she always wanted to do this, but she came to me one day and said, you know, I think, you know how we're all clamped down the same buildings and everything during the COVID. And she came to me and said, I just think I need a little more space. And I said, oh, what are you thinking? And she said, I'm going to want to buy a house in Portugal. And I said, I thought you meant maybe move into the other bedroom. By a little space, you meant the width of the continental United States and the Atlantic Ocean. That's slightly more than a little. I thought you meant Sacramento for like a couple of months. Let your hair down.
No.
But so we ended as pals because it was really that we wanted different things in life. I didn't want to move. She wants to retire, and it's much cheaper to retire there. Not as cheap as, what was it, South Carolina, where houses are $9, but it's cheaper to retire there. She took her Social Security. She has some income from rental properties, and she could live there like a king, you know. So I just said, all right.
Well, I love him like the moon loves the sun.
Yeah. I don't even know what that means.
I mean, I'm not saying that people can't be friends and it can't be amicable and they can't still care about each other, but to put out a statement, oh, I'm still in love with him and I love him like the moon loves the sun and the sun loves the moon. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. If you're that much in love, then you know.
Here's what it is. It's also keeping people out of your mess. Like, okay, people are going to be curious about our breakup because we're both celebrities and it's all together. So, of course, they're going to wonder why we're not together. So instead of putting out this whole elaborate story of why we're breaking up, I'm just going to put out this really flowery statement and you can interpret it how you want. Because at the end of the day, you're not about to be in my business like that. So I feel that that's what was a deflection, more like, oh, you want to know? This is where I feel. And yeah, like some people are going to feel like you and some people are going to feel like me or like for them. Way to go. I wish I could look at my ex-wife and be like, I love you more than the sun and the moon. I just kind of wish she would burn up on the sun. But that's, you know.
It's also a stupid metaphor. The moon is completely indifferent to the sun, for Christ's sake. It's the moon.
That's the metaphor, Johnny. That's That's the trick she's throwing on you.
I know.
Don't hang out.
People are thinking they love each other. The moon is dependent upon the Earth for gravitational. The moon I don't think has anything to do with the sun. And
they in a love triangle.
On the moon.
They in a love triangle with the Earth, and the Earth is a hub. So
don't tell Venus.
Okay, worse to be the dumper or the dumpy?
Ooh, depends.
Yeah.
Depends on who's dumping you. If you get dumped by somebody you gave a pity relationship to, and someone you're like, wait a minute, I was the cute one, then yeah, it's terrible. But if you get dumped by somebody that's way out of your league, it's like, you know what? Thanks for letting me play the game. It was good to be nominated. Good luck on your endeavors. This is going on my resume. People be like, oh man, you was with Naomi Campbell for like 2 weeks. Yeah, bro. Yeah, man, it was wild. Then she sobered up, and that was the end. But I knew
there was an expiration date on this anyway, so it's fine.
Right? Nothing good. Nothing lasts forever. But like, if it's somebody who I really was in love with, and I felt like I was the better person in the relationship, I'm definitely going to be upset. Like, who the hell are you breaking up with me? I'm supposed to break up with you.
So bottom line is then your ego's involved.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, you don't want to be cheated on. You don't want to be the person who's cheated on. But if everyone comes to the table and says, "Hey, look, we had a good run, and it seems like we've reached the end of that run, or you want different things than I do." So she wants to like my wife says that her dream was to walk. She's like a designer, architect, interior person. She wants to walk cobblestone streets of ancient cities, not drive by, big box stores on the Cloverleaf of the freeway. That's what she wants to do. That's her goal. My goal is just one day get invited to Copeland's to play pool and have a beer. We both have goals.
We all got different goals, baby. We all got to go for our dreams.
Aim high, Johnny. Aim high.
What time? I've known you for 34 years. 34 years I've known you.
It wasn't your lack of ambition or anything that made her decide to go to Portugal.
Yeah,
and he got the red felt.
He
got all the sticks. He got the whole setup, Johnny. He over here playing with your emotions. He probably got the.
Okay, most cold-blooded breakup.
Most what?
Most cold-blooded breakup. That was either said to you or you said to somebody else.
Dang. I mean, like, I'm trying to forget that past life. I'm trying to really focus on positivity in my life now.
This is more the moon loving the sun crap. This is more the moon loving the sun crap.
All right,
I'll be real.
Let
me call my lawyer and see if I can make these statements. Hold on, let me see my lawyer.
This wasn't heartbreaking or really cruel or anything, but I went out with a gal a few months ago and things were moving along. And a guy said to me, "Well, you played football at St. Mary's College, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I played football back there in the day." And he said, "So were you a Catholic?" I said, "I was raised Catholic, but I'm more of an agnostic now." And my date reeled around like in The Exorcist and said, "You're what?" Yeah, and everybody just sort of stopped in the conversation. And she's, what is she? I don't even remember what religion she was. She wants to find some man to go on her personal journey to find Jesus Christ as their personal friend and savior. She told me like at a sports bar during a Warrior game with a drink in her hand. So it was like the third or fourth.
But being an agnostic doesn't preclude. An agnostic is you're just not sure. You're not saying it's out of the question. If you just said I'm atheist, that's different.
That's what I told her. But she said she wanted someone to support her and be with her on her journey to find Jesus. And I said, "Look, he's a Jew. He's from Middle East and he died 2,000 years ago. Good luck. I'll come by your house tonight if you want. You can have a personal relationship with me." I'm serious story. So it sort of took a hit there, but we went on a few more dates, and finally, that was just one of the factors that was. Here's another one. The divorce isn't final with my ex, and there's some, there are things to separate, right? Before
look at me and say, go ahead.
Because you got a PhD in separating stuff from divorces, right?
He got the pool table. That's how we got the pool table.
I got a doctorate in the pool table.
Yeah. So she didn't like that. And no amount of explaining to her about interspousal property acquisitions and dodging capital gains taxes. And at one point I just said, "Look, I really like you, but I don't like you like $38,000 worth." And that didn't float very well either. I said, I can't get fully divorced until this property has been restructured. And she was not, but it was, she turned to me at a bar during a Warriors game and said, "You're what?" And she was very angry and pulled away. We were holding hands or tucked, and it was never, we never recovered from that.
And how long were you going out up to that point?
Well, we went out for maybe, and she doesn't live here, so we went about every week for another few weeks, and then.
I meant beforehand. I mean, I'm saying before.
Oh yeah, that was about the third or fourth date, maybe the fourth.
So it never came up beforehand.
Wow. And it had gone well until then, pretty much. And yeah, so who knows? So it wasn't, brutal or harsh or terrible. It was just kind of weird in the 21st century. I said, look, you can pursue whatever you want to pursue. I'm sure that plenty of interest, I can tell you the 14 different ways a bubble screen can fail against a prevent defense. So, and you completely don't care about that. So, yeah, I just said that's what makes a relationship to a certain degree, right? Is complement. Remember Maslow's theories? Did you have that in college? Complementary and similarity as well. You've got to have some things you do separately or you kill each other, and some things you do together. And so I just, at that point, it was just a sign of a degree of irrational, sort of semi-sociopathic, spoiled. I asked a friend of mine, can we say anything on I'll say that. I asked a friend of mine, let's pretend it's not her, but let's pretend about another friend. I explained to my situation, and I said, I don't know if it's a religion thing, and he said, she's a spoiled, I'll change it. She's a spoiled little brat. So I looked at her background. She's a spoiled little brat. So yeah, so I don't know, who knows, but it wasn't, I liked her and she liked me, and neither one cared. No, that was a song. So that was fine. I mean, I'm glad, aren't you happier we went down a Night Moves by Bob Seger, I think.
Did the Warriors win? Did the Warriors win the game at least? I
think I won that day, to be frank. I was the biggest winner.
You might have dodged the bullet. Okay, I did forget to break up with somebody one time. And I forgot to break up with him, and I had invited him to an event that I was taking this new person I was seeing, and I showed up, and they were standing at the front, and they were like, "Oh, my name's not on the list," and I was like, "Oh yeah, let me run in right quick, and I'm gonna come back and talk to you." And I went in. I never went back outside. That's the degree of ignorance I was doing back in the day. That was evil. That was evil.
That was probably my worst. When I was 21, 22, stupid dog, making a mistake of making a date with two girls on the same night and have them in the same place, and doing the Peter Brady thing where let me get you a drink. And while you're getting the drink, you're going to have the other table. I'll bring right back with your drink. And eventually you're going to mess up.
Yeah. I just didn't go outside.
I
knew she couldn't get in, so I just stayed inside.
If it's any consolation, what you did is nothing compared to what my ex did. So my first husband not only cheated on me, but lived a double life with another woman in another state. And instead of saying, "Oh, I'm going to go get her a drink," he'd say, "I'm going on a business trip," and would go back and forth. And when he found out that I found out, he never came home.
I'm sorry.
Wow. Trucker?
That is
traveling salesman? Trucker?
No. It's professional con artist who lied, said that he went to Vanderbilt University and got an engineering degree, and he would worm his way into these engineering jobs, and he was also a bluegrass musician. Well, cut to Karma's bitch. He's dead now.
Well, I guess you won.
It all worked out.
It all worked out for me. But I never ended up having to get a divorce, because he married me when he was still legally married to his second wife. And he did the same thing to the next one and the next one.
So this is a Lifetime movie.
Oh yeah. It's a Lifetime
memoir for sure.
Directed by Quentin Tarantino.
Wow. Well, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I feel absolved. It took me years, but now I feel completely absolved.
I feel way better about what I did.
And yes, I have a rough draft of a book written.
Yeah.
I just got to get around to the edits.
So where's everybody playing? We'll start with you, Chris. Where you playing?
This weekend I'll be in LA. Catch me at the Comedy Store. I should be on the Up Next show, 10:30 in the Belly Room. And then you know what? I need to start doing this. Please go download my album on Spotify and all the things, because I'm tired of getting 98-cent checks. I would like to at least get $1. So download it, share it with some friends. Go check my album out. It's my first 5th album. Check it out.
Okay, Johnny.
Wineries, fundraisers, bars and grills, JohnnySteele.com. It's JohnnySteele.com. I got gig Friday. And when does this drop? Tomorrow? Well, Friday I'm in Vallejo at the museum. I'm at a maritime museum, which is
I saw that. I saw that somewhere that you're playing a museum. What are you doing playing a museum?
It's got a stage in there and somebody booked it. And I did it a couple of years ago. It was actually kind of fun. They actually have, it's a periscope. They actually, because it's Vallejo was a submarine town. And so it's got a periscope. It's Vallejo, so you can use the periscope and see your car getting broken into a block away. Dive.
And Candy, where can people come and see you?
Let's see. So this Sunday I'll be at Tempo Bar and Kitchen in Gilroy. Never been there before. I have this is my little shot glasses. They say Canday Shaw Comedy. So I'm very easy to find on social media. Canday Shaw Comedy on Facebook. Instagram, I'm most active there. And then I'm doing this autism fundraiser September 13th, Britannia Arms in San Jose with Jeff Applebaum.
Well, a pleasure having you. Come back and see us again, okay?
Awesome, we'll do.
All right, Canday Shaw, Johnny Steele, and Chris Riggins. Always a pleasure, everybody. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks, man. See you in a minute.
All right, and that will wrap up our second visual version of the podcast. I guess we'll do this every week now. It seems to work. So, well, actually, you tell me whether or not it works. Yeah, if you like the podcast, you can support it by letting people know any way you possibly can. You can download it on iTunes. You can hear it on Spotify, on Stitcher. You can go to briancopeland.com. You can listen to the podcast there. The YouTube version drops on Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. And so you can just go to YouTube and search Copeland's Corner, and that will pop up there as well. So we're trying to get 1,000 subscribers by the beginning of the month. So I've got a little ways to go. So I'm going to ask you that if you're watching this and you like it, please click subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. How do you like that? It doesn't cost you anything just to subscribe. I'll check you out next week. Till then, be kind to your neighbor. He knows where you live.